Welcome to the meeting of the Northern Planning Committee. I am Councillor.
We are now live.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the meeting of Northern Planning Committee. I am Councillor Paul Wynne, Chair of the committee. This meeting is being live streamed so members of the public can hear the audio of the meeting and view the papers shown on the screen. If any of the committee members experience technical difficulties during the meeting, please contact IT on the number you already have. Please mute your microphones unless asked to speak and re-mute after speaking. Use the chat function to indicate you want to speak, but nothing else, because the debate has to be heard by those listening to the audio feed. Members should ensure that they are present throughout the meeting, as you cannot vote on any item if you've not heard all the debate. As Chair, I will interpret the Council's existing standing orders in light of the requirements of remote participation in advance with advice from the monitoring officer prior to making a ruling. At the start of the meeting, I will ask members of the committee to confirm their presence and any disclosable and pecuniary interests. Can members and officers introduce themselves each time before they speak so those listening know who is speaking? Right, we'll take the roll call now. Members must disclose any pecuniary interest in any matters to be discussed which is not included in the register of interest, and leave the meeting by turning off the camera, muting their microphone prior to the matter being discussed. Okay, we'll move on to the roll call. Roy Aldercroft.
Yes, present and no pecuniary interests.
Thank you. Nicholas Bardsley.
Present and no pecuniary interests.
Thank you. Councillor Gerald Aiken. Okay, I'll come back to that one in a minute. Councillor Pauline D.
Present and no pecuniary interest.
Councillor Nat Green.
Present. Item 7, I am the division member and I will be recusing myself from that particular item. Items 5 and 8, I am on the Town Council Planning Committee and I have a dispensation to come to a different view should I so wish. Thank you.
Councillor Vince Hunt.
Present, Chair, and no interest to declare.
Councillor Mark Jones. I believe he's having problems getting in, so he'll make himself known when he comes into the meeting. Councillor Pam Mosley, who's given apologies. I believe Ted Clark is standing in, so Ted Clark. Councillor Ted Clark.
Present, no interests.
Thank you, Ted. Councillor Keith Roberts.
Present, Chair, and interested. I'm a member of Shrewsbury Town Council and the Shrewsbury Town Council Planning Committee, likewise for Nat Green, which is item 5 and item 8.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
Councillor David Vasmere.
Present and no interest to declare.
Thank you. Myself, I have no interest to declare. I'm going back to Gerald Aiken now. Gerald, are you there? Okay, it doesn't seem like he's there, so we'll have to move on. Right, please can the officers confirm their presence, starting with the planning officers.
Philip Molyneux, Principal Planner.
Kelvin Hall, Principal Planner.
Solicitor.
Miranda Garrard, Solicitor.
Thank you. Committee officers.
Emily Marshall, Committee Officer.
Thank you very much. I shall now turn to the items on the agenda, starting with item 1, apologies.
Apologies for absence have been received from Councillor Pam Mosley, and we have Councillor Ted Clark substituting for Councillor Mosley.
Thank you. Item 2. To confirm the minutes of the Northern Planning Committee meeting held on the 21st of July 2020. I move that the minutes of the previous Northern Planning Committee meeting held on the 18th of August 2020 as circulated be signed as a correct record. I won't ask for a seconder yet. I'm just going to ask if there's any problems with the minutes by any other members.
Chair, I do have an issue to raise with the minutes. I was late coming into the meeting. I missed the whole of the first agenda item as I was having, well, my council IT committed suicide basically, and I had to have a new computer brought out, so I missed the whole of the first item. I also dropped out for part of one of the other items, so abstained to vote on that item, given that I hadn't heard the whole debate. So I will be abstaining from voting these minutes through, as I wasn't there for the whole meeting, but just wanted to mention that so the minutes could reflect that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hunt. Have we got anybody else who have a problem with the minutes? Otherwise, I will now accept these minutes as a true record unless anyone else indicates differently. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second, Chair. Keith Roberts.
Thank you very much. Right, item 3, public question time.
No public questions have been received.
Thank you very much. Item 4, disclosable pecuniary interest. This has been dealt with during the initial roll call of the meeting. Turning to the substantive items, the planning officer will present the item, then we'll deal with the public speaking part of the meeting, then open to the members of the committee to debate. So can the planning officer introduce themselves and present this item, which is Conway Drive, Shrewsbury?
Thank you, Chair. Kelvin Hall, Principal Planner.
Thank you, Kelvin.
This is an application for the erection of a first floor extension to the front elevation of the property at 26 Conway Drive in Shrewsbury, and it includes elevational alterations to facilitate the use of an integral garage as residential use. Next slide, please. And the property boundary is outlined in red. It's located in the Telford Estate residential area of Shrewsbury. Surrounding properties are in residential use. Next slide. And this is a photograph of the property, the one in the middle. It's a semi-detached property on the left-hand side of the pair there. It has an attached forward projecting garage, which is currently used as a playroom. As you can see, it's set back from the road from Conway Drive. Next slide. This is looking further to the left, towards the east. You can see that the neighbouring properties in that direction are orientated perpendicular to the application property, so that their back gardens face towards it. The rear gardens of those properties are about 12 metres long. Next slide. This is looking in the other direction. You can see the row of semi-detached properties along Conway Drive. They've already got the main impacts will be impacts on the street scene along that frontage, and also the impacts on the dwellings to the side on the previous slide. Next slide. This is just a block plan showing the location of the garage above which the property will be extended, and you can see the juxtaposition there of the property with the properties to the southeast and their back gardens. Next slide. So these are the existing elevations of the property. You can see that the house has already been extended to the rear by the addition of a dormer window. You can see on the top middle there, and also a conservatory to the rear as well. Next slide. These are the proposed plans. You can see from this, it's to provide a bedroom above the garage, These are revised proposals following objections from the Town Council and also from 2 neighbouring properties, so that the revised proposals have now reduced the size of the extension. It would now be formed by extending the roof line down over the garage and inserting the dormer window into the roof slope as shown on the top left. The garage door would be removed, as you can see, on the ground floor level, and a window inserted in its place. There'll be no, as you can see, the bottom right elevation, there'll be no windows on the side facing the neighbouring dwellings, and the materials would match the existing house. Next slide. This is a slide showing the original proposals, which showed a front-facing gable extension. But if we can just go back to the previous slide and leave that one up for now, thank you. So in terms of the officer appraisal, you'll note that the Town Council have been reconsulted on the amendments to the scheme. They maintain their objection on the basis that the proposal is still out of keeping with the street scene. There have been 2 objections from neighbouring properties, and their concerns are in paragraph 4.4, and these include the impact on the view from their house, the amount that the house has already been extended, the impact on light to the house and garden, and the impact on the street scene. In terms of the officer appraisal, then, the officers consider that the revised proposal is modest in scale. It is of an acceptable design with a sloping roof, which would reduce visibility when viewed from those neighbouring properties. Officers feel that the gardens of the neighbouring properties are sufficiently long to ensure that the extension would not be overbearing. And clearly within the street scene, the extension would be visible and there would be some impact. However, given that the property is set back from the roadside and it is at the end of the row of semis, views of the extension would not be dominant along the road. And on that basis, officers recommend that planning permission is granted. One final thing to note, there's a list of recommended conditions at the end of the report. Condition 4 seeks to ensure that the construction deliveries avoid peak traffic times. Officers are given further consideration to this and recommend that this condition is omitted, given that the proposal is small in scale and that the approach roads are of a reasonable width. And that's the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelvin. Any public speakers on this matter have submitted written statements to be read out in accordance with the revised procedure for public speaking. The local member may read out their own or may have elected the solicitor to read theirs out. Can the listener read out any statements if there are any, please?
Thank you, Chair. Miranda Garrard, solicitor speaking. Yes, I have one statement from Councillor Pam Mosley, who is the local member, and she states, as a development built in the 1960s and 70s with more generous plots than would be the case today, Telford Estate has seen a large number of 1- and 2-storey extensions over recent years, to the front, side, rear and into the roof space, as people seek to extend their homes rather than move, wishing to stay in the neighbourhood. 26 Conway Drive is one such property. The residents of 2 houses on Abingdon Road will be particularly affected by the proposals before committee today. The property has already been extended significantly. Originally a 3-bedroom semi-detached house, there has been a loft conversion with a large dormer window to the rear, which we are told houses an additional 3 bedrooms. At the rear, there is a full-width conservatory, and the current proposals relate to the front of the house. Whilst the plans under consideration today have been amended to address concerns about the bulk of the first floor front extension, the reduction is in fact marginal. There would still be a big increase in the mass which would face the occupants of 2 properties in Abingdon Road, whose back gardens run down to the side boundary of the application property. This would be overbearing and cause an unacceptable loss of light and open aspect to the 2 householders, particularly as the side wall of 26 Conway Drive is very close to the site boundary, there being only a narrow passageway between the 2. and the previous extensions of conservatory and rear dormer have already added considerably to the bulk which faces them. Because of this, I would urge committee members to refuse this application, as this proposal, I feel, crosses over the line of how much this house can be extended due to the previous developments. I have no objection to the conversion of the garage to residential use, as there is adequate off-road parking possible to the front of the house. That's the end of that statement, Chair, and there are no other public speakers on this item.
Thank you, Miranda. Does the planning officer wish to clarify any points in the response?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kelvin. I will now open the debate for the committee to comment. Please indicate on the chat function if you wish to speak. The solicitor will let me know who is next to speak.
Thank you, Chair. Just to indicate, Councillor Dakin has joined the meeting, so he's now in the meeting, and then the first speaker who's requesting to speak is Councillor Green.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Green.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Nat Green. When this came before Town Council Planning, we were immediately concerned about the effect upon the street scene, and nothing I've seen in this presentation again has made me want to change my my view on that. And the other thing I think we need to bear in mind is also that we're setting a precedent here, and we have a street scene where we have a relatively similar effect across a suburban street. Now, I know these houses were, not built to win the Sterling Prize, but nonetheless, you had a reasonably pleasing look at a pleasing look of a suburban street, and to allow this protrusion into it, I think will damage the street scene and also set a precedent, and we will not quite sure what we will end up, where that will go. So as I have to say, as it stands at the moment, I am minded to maintain wanting to refuse this.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Anybody else indicated?
The next indication of request to speak on this item is Councillor Vasma.
Okay, Councillor Vasma, you'd like to come forward? Speak.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to make one small point about the conditions, and on the officer did mention condition 4, and that would the proposal is to take that condition out of the standing conditions here. Knowing Conway Drive as I do, it's can be quite a busy road at times, and I think that condition should stay in. On the general matter of the application, I support very much what Councillor Green said, and knowing the area well, I think that it would set a precedent, and I think that the committee should refuse this application.
Thank you, Councillor Vasma. Anybody else indicated? Sorry, Miranda.
Next request, Chair, is Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Chair. Miranda, Councillor Hunt here. I guess I'm going to kind of be the fly in the ointment a little bit. Obviously, we've seen the presentation, we've looked at it. I don't disagree with the first application having concerns raised about it. But in this instance now, we're talking about there's going to be no further protrusion as it's going upwards, not outwards, above the garage. It's 5.5 square metres according to the report. And I just want officers to clear up the piece about setting a precedent. My understanding is in planning you can't set a precedent, and each application is taken on its own merit. So I would probably be supporting this. I wouldn't have supported it if it had poked out even further, but I'm not sure that going up as is planned now is really going to make too much difference.
Mr. Chair, Philip Molyneux, principal planner, speaking. Yes.
Philip, you're very faint.
Can you hear me now?
Just about.
Right. Can I suggest? I hear what Councillor Green has just said about setting a precedent and the street scene. Can I suggest? Is there a photograph or a plan showing this house and its actual location so that members are fully aware of the location of this particular plot? That's it. And indicating the house on the end, and therefore it's not in the street scene. I think you need to carefully weigh up the photographs and location in your decision-making process, please.
Gotcha.
Okay. Has anybody else indicated to speak, Miranda?
Chair, I'm not sure if Councillor Hunt is indicating again because he's put a second message up there.
Councillor Hunt is as politely as he can.
Councillor Hunt, if you carry on.
Well, just really to get an answer on the precedent setting and how my understanding is that's not the case. Each individual application is taking its own merit. But also, as we flick through them then, could we have a look at the picture of the street scene looking up the street as opposed to down it? Thank you. Seems to change every time I blink.
That one, no.
That one.
Yeah. Any comments on that, Vince?
No, I don't. I mean, I still want an answer about the question of precedent setting. I mean, they're all. I don't see that going above is going to change the street scene desperately. You know, I appreciate that this house may well have been subject to add-ons previously. They may have been done by different residents. Who knows? And I can only reiterate what I said earlier, which is if they were coming out, I think that would look odd. But I'm not so sure it will going up.
Okay, thank you, Councillor.
Chair.
Calvin
Hall, Principal Planner. In terms of the issue about precedent, Councillor Hunt is correct that each application would be dealt with on its own particular merits. I think in this particular case, there are reasons why officers feel able to support the first floor extension, and this photo here is a good example that when you're coming to, in that direction with the property on your left, the visibility of the extension is obscured somewhat, not only by the dwellings to the left, which are just off the photo, but also by the garage with the garage door in blue, such that it doesn't affect the street scene until you are entirely upon it when you are travelling in that direction. If you were going in the other direction, if we can go back to the other photograph, this one here, then as I said in my presentation, it's at the property is at the end of the row of semis, such that it wouldn't stand out as a significantly different design feature on that particular part of the road, because it's kind of at the end of the row of semis, truncated by the properties which are perpendicular that you can see in the photograph there. And on that basis, and I think if you go back to the next photo again, the two further on, I think it's number 10. This one here, yeah. You can see in this street scene that there is a garage forward facing in the next property, and also if you look further along as well, there are porches with sloping roofs, and so you do pick up elements of the design of that street in the sloping roof design of the proposed extension.
Nice.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kelvin. Anybody else indicate to speak, Miranda?
Councillor Bardsley, Chair.
Right, Councillor Bardsley.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Nick Bardsley. A question, really, and a comment. In the officer report, paragraph 6.210, the advice from officers is that any further extension would be likely to not to be supported as overdevelopment. What interests me is why at this stage would any further extension be regarded as overdevelopment after a great many extensions and enlargements already? I mean, why this one and not one of the previous ones? I'm just puzzled as to how come this doesn't cross the line, but a further extension would, because the argument, it seems to me, from the local member, is that this has crossed the line. Officers say it hasn't, but any further extension would. I'm just, on what basis do we decide that, you know, we've had enough extensions?
Kelvin, can you respond to that?
Thank you, Chair. Kelvin Hall. Well, it's a good question, and it is very much subjective. I think the point I would probably make is that the existing extensions that have been carried out have presumably been carried out under permitted development in terms of a works to the rear, which would include the dormer window and also the conservatory, are not visible in the street scene and are likely to have very little impact in the neighbourhood. I think the important thing when we're looking at extensions to houses is to ensure that they're not too large in terms of the scale of the house, and so that the actual original character of the house is retained. And I think the case officer in this respect is considering that that any further extensions would significantly alter the original character of the house, and be that one step too far, and have those additional impacts in the neighbourhood, which will be unacceptable. But it is a subjective point.
Thank you, Kelvin. Do we have anybody else indicating?
No current further requests, Chair.
Thank you very much. Well, in that case, I'll just, if the planning officer would like to clarify anything else on this, or anything to add, Kelvin?
No, thank you, Chair.
Miranda, have you anything to add?
Councillor Hunt is asking to speak now, Chair.
Okay.
Well, it's not really so much to speak, but obviously I am conscious of what the local member has said. I don't altogether agree with it. Obviously, it can't set precedent. We've heard that. I think looking down the street scene with the tiled sloping roofs further down, I don't think it's going to have much of an impact. I do agree that future development, bringing it further out into the street, would make it look odd, but I don't think this would. I don't think we could defend on appeal a no. So based on all of that and taking on board officer's recommendation for the removal of the condition with regard to deliveries, I'm going to move that we go with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. I was just about to ask if somebody could propose, so there you go. Do I have a seconder for that recommendation?
Councillor Allcroft, I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Allcroft. Right, well, we'll take a vote. The solicitor will read out the names of the committee members present, entitled to vote, and then confirm the result of the vote. Thank you, Miranda.
Thank you.
Chair, could I just mention, what are we doing about condition 4 in the appendix? Is that going to be included or taken out?
I actually asked for that to be taken on board in my recommendation to approve that that's removed, as it's not going to make any difference in this instance.
Okay, so it will be removed, Councillor Vasmir. Okay, that's a proposal in front of us. Is everybody clear now?
Yeah.
Okie dokie.
Thank you, Chair. So the proposal is to go with the officer's recommendation to approve the application without condition 4. So I'll now read the names out, and if you can indicate whether you are for or against that proposition, please. Councillor Aldcroft.
For.
Councillor Bardsley.
Against.
Councillor Dakin, I understand, is present but hasn't been present for the whole of this item, so cannot vote. Is that correct, Councillor Dakin?
Yes, I shan't be voting on this because I didn't hear all the case.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor D.
For.
Councillor Green.
Against.
Councillor Hunt.
For.
Now, Councillor Jones has joined the meeting late, but he wasn't present throughout the item, therefore he cannot vote either. Councillor Clark.
Reluctantly against.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Again, reluctantly against.
Councillor Vasmer.
Against.
Councillor Wynne.
For.
Chair, that gives you 4 votes in favour and 5 votes against, so that proposition has fallen and you will therefore need to ask for a new proposition.
Thank you, Miranda. Could I ask for another proposal then, please? Thank you, Councillor Green. I presume, yeah.
Yes, well, we've got 2 options here at the moment. Firstly, the trouble was because we didn't really discuss the issue of condition 4 in its entirety. We're not sure whether that was the key to the fall of the application, and also there's the straight refusal, which will be on the grounds of street scene and overdevelopment.
Right, those are your reasons. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that, Councillor Vasmer.
Thank you, David. Right, I have a proposed and seconder, so we shall go to the motion again. Right, Miranda? Go for a vote. Do we?
Chair, before you put that to the vote, may I suggest through you that you just ask if the planning officer has any other comments, as this is a proposition against recommendation and we just need to be clear of the reasons for the proposition.
Thank you, Miranda. Kelvin, can you come forward and speak, please? Give us some advice.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, there was a number of issues that were raised as part of the consultation process, including impacts on residential amenity and impacts on the character of the area. It'll be important to set out whether impacts on residential amenity form part of the reason for refusal as well, in terms of the properties next door, and also what in particular in relation to overdevelopment is the main cause for concern for the reason, which will be overdevelopment and impact on the street scene. Thank you.
Thank you. Miranda, coming back to you.
Thank you, Chair. I think it should probably be for the proposer to indicate, and we also have a request to speak from Councillor Hunt as well. So I think the proposer perhaps could comment on what the planning officer has just said in terms of the proposed reasons for refusal, because we do need to be clear what is meant by overdevelopment, given that the footprint of the property is not in fact increasing as such.
Councillor Green,
hello, yes, Councillor Green. I'm quite happy to remove overdevelopment and stay with impact on the street scene, and also, as the officer has indicated, the effect on amenity as well.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Miranda, coming back to you.
Councillor Hunt is indicating, and I would also ask, Chair, if we could be clear as to what impact on amenity we mean, because obviously there are many sorts of residential amenity.
I'll just go to Councillor Hunt now before I come back to Councillor Green. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. It was just a quickie actually. When Councillor Green spoke, he said that he felt that there were two ways, whether this had been refused by members because of the removal of condition 4 or whether it was being refused for other reasons. I didn't feel that he actually made the proposal. Was he proposing to approve it with 4 in place, or was he proposing to go for a refusal? If that could be just clarified, I'd be grateful.
Hopefully, Councillor Green, you can cover both those points.
Thank you. Well, I was invited to put forward the reasons for refusal. I was merely observing the fact that we hadn't actually discussed the condition 4 in detail. Maybe if you wish to, we should go, if you want to go for another vote with condition 4 first, which I think would be the logical thing to do, to go for the proposal with condition 4 attached. You may find a different result, and then of course we don't need to go to the refusal. That's for the refusal.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Green. Miranda, can I just check whether we can do that? We'll have to have another proposal with that put in, I presume.
Chair, if you're going to do that, because an approval is a direct opposite of the refusal you've now got on the table, I think you'd need to ask Councillor Green to withdraw his proposal to refuse, at least for now, seek a proposal from another councillor to approve with condition 4, and then see what the vote is on that.
Right, so we'll have to have somebody different from Councillor Green to propose the next one, yeah?
Indeed, Chair, if Councillor Green is content to temporarily withdraw his proposition to refuse.
Yes, I'm willing to do that, with temporary withdrawal of the proposition.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Right, can I have a proposal from somebody else, hopefully?
Happy to make that proposal, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hunt. So we're still going for a refusal with...
No, approval with condition 4 left in place.
You need a second, Chair.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah,
So, should we try...
Councillor Allcroft, I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Allcroft. So we'll go through the motions again. Miranda, just remind everybody so it's clear in everybody's head before we take the vote. Before
we do that, Chair, with regard to condition 4 and the wording of condition 4, if we could just look at that briefly